All right. Hey, everybody. Andrew Kent, Rooted in Company. I am joined today by Alex Grimnes. How are you, Alex?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Very good, man. Very good. Hey, Alex is the president of Premier Credit Consulting. I've known him for a long time, since back before the last crash, right?
Yep.
Um, '06, '07 kind of time frame. And I've always followed his career and what he's done. He's a great educator and really just an advocate for people, not just on credit, but just having kind of a more stable financial life. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So again, thanks for joining us, Alex.
Hey, appreciate the opportunity.
All right. So the question is this, guys, that I'm getting a lot. What happens if I stop paying my mortgage? Okay, I've had that actual phone call or text several times in the last few days. So with all that confusion, we wanted to give you a little bit of info. Alex is going to give you some great detail and kind of a broader range. I want to talk about it on mortgage specific, though. So we're going to have attached some links here to this post where you can get a little bit more information. And obviously, it's updating every day. So tomorrow, this might be outdated, but we're going to do our best. There were some steps that I liked that I think we could go over quickly on if you're struggling, if you're thinking like, hey, I think I need to stop paying my mortgage. Let's talk about that. But what those steps would be really quick, and we'll kind of put these bullet point. One is find out who owns your loan, right? Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, these are all people that own your loans. And then you have a servicer that could be, Wells Fargo or Intercap or whatever that you pay your payment to. But find that out, and you can find out by calling your servicer. So whoever you make your payment to. Number two, you want to contact the mortgage person, the mortgage servicer, like we said, who you make your payments to, and just talk to them about options. Like that's the best thing, putting your head in a hole and just stopping making your payment. That's not going to be your best bet, as Alex will confirm here shortly. Number three, document your hardships. If you're in a position where you've lost income or you've lost your job because of this, it's important that as you're talking to the bank, as you're talking through with anybody that you may be speaking to about this, that you record calls, that you make notes of who you talk to, times, dates, because this is going to impact mortgage companies. If everybody stops making their payments, some of these smaller companies especially will go out of business. So it's important to really document everything that's happening. Document your change in pay with new paycheck stubs, maybe stock portfolio, where it was and where it is now. Just really be able to prove the case, because in a lot of these instances, to get any help, you're going to need to be able to apply for it and show that you're really in that position, right? Would you confirm with that? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And the documentation is going to be big because right now everything is so vague in terms of how they've explained it. And so as they come out with more guidelines and procedures, they're going to require a lot more of that information. And if you just call and ask for deferment, it might not happen unless you can prove it.
Yeah, good call. Okay, so again, lots of links, a part of this where you can read up and get some more information. And there's a lot of other things to talk about. But one was FreddieMac.com, and they just had some great ideas of things that could be available if you're having a hard time. And then I want to talk to Alex and ask a couple of questions. So one was a forbearance. Alex can probably hit on that a little bit, but that's essentially where they don't forgive your payments. You still owe the interest, but they're able to push payments off even up to 12 months. So that's something you could talk to your servicer about. Waiving late fees is one thing that Freddie Mac is looking at and talking about doing. Halting foreclosures until at least May 17th. So this really only applies if you're already in foreclosure, so don't worry about that too much. Offering loan modifications, which is a big one. And then not reporting to credit bureaus was one that Freddie Mac said. And that's kind of where we can segue into Alex. So what's your point of view of all this, Alex, and how does it impact not only mortgages, but everything?
Yeah, it's hard because there's a lot of really good information like what you just read off from Freddie Mac. But again, none of it is really all that concrete. And I think that for a lot of consumers right now, the idea of a forbearance or deferment might seem like a easy way to save up some money. But you have to be aware of the consequences at the end, because with a forbearance, that's something that as we get more information on, we'll know kind of what that impact is going to be. But for example, if you just go into a basic deferment on a mortgage, what we're seeing is a lot of these services are coming out with balloon payments at the end of the deferment. And that has a big impact because, God, could you imagine, going through all this and then July you have a $9,000 or $10,000 mortgage payment due? And it's not just mortgages. This is impacting everything from auto loans to credit cards to student loans. And so the hard part is there's not a lot of concrete information right now. Obviously there's going to be more that comes out, but I think that that's dangerous for a lot of consumers.
Okay. So one thing that we were talking about before was maybe some other options, right? Like if you have the ability to get a loan or go in and get a personal loan or a signature loan. I mean, some of these banks, if your credit's still good, they'll give you money just based on a credit score that could potentially put you in a position where, yeah, you're still having to pay it back, but it gives you a little relief and you haven't totally gone in and messed yourself up. What other tips and ideas or thoughts would you maybe have there?
I think that that's a good one. Absolutely. Especially because if you're to look at the difference between this financial crisis and the financial crisis of 2008, the biggest difference is that banks have money and banks want to lend and banks want to take care of you.
Yeah, this isn't the same as '08, right? Like this isn't that same deal. Yeah.
Not even close. You have well-funded banks and taking out a loan might be a good option for you. Also staggering your deferments if you go down that path, deferring everything at once. When you come back out on the other side, it might be too much to handle. And that's where a lot of the credit challenges are going to take place. Yeah. It's not necessarily going to be during the deferment or forbearance periods. It's going to be the catastrophe that comes after the fact when people actually have to pay back these large sums of money. And a lot of companies they're not changing the terms of their loans. They're carrying the interest. They're doing a lot of these things that are going to ultimately end up costing the consumer at the end of the day. So I think that the right thing to do right now is to explore all of your options. I think that it would be foolish for me to say, don't defer your payments or don't go into forbearance. That might be the case for you if you need to do that and take advantage of that. But there are opportunities and strategies that you can use to be smart about it. Because as we were talking before we started recording, I think we're both in agreement that once we get past this, there are going to be fantastic market opportunities. If you can protect your credit score during this period, you're jumping to the front of the line, my friend. As soon as we get past this, if you've been on the fence of buying a home, or if you're looking to, move into a different house, something like that, man, you're going to be in a much better position to take advantage of those market conditions when we come out of this.
So instead of kind of taking that fear mentality of, do I stop making my payments? How am I going to do this? Turn it around and say, I'm going to figure out any way I can to get through this so that on the other end, I'm in a better position.
Exactly. And that's where, kind of like what you said, read the fine print, listen to the disclosures when you call in. We've done a lot of research on this. And if you are going to defer, maybe look at deferring in a staggered manner. Don't defer everything at once. Maybe stagger it out so that you're not being hit in June or July with these big payments that are going to come back to bite you. And the biggest thing is, from a regulatory standpoint, which I'm really intrigued by the lack of concrete information that's available, but the CARES Act that just got passed, really the only information that's available is being pushed by the CFPB, where they're recommending that creditors don't negatively report information to credit, and they don't kick people out of their homes. They don't, and those are all just recommendations. You're going to have mortgage companies, they're getting hit on both sides of the spectrum. They're getting hit on the servicing side because they're getting killed with margin calls and everything else happening. And now with people going into forbearance, that's an even bigger risk. And so I think that the really important thing that you can do right now is educate yourself, explore all of the options available to you, and then look at your budget and make an educated decision on whether or not you think you can weather this storm without having to go down the path of deferment or forbearance. Yeah. And if you can, then you really could be setting yourself up for some pretty amazing opportunities over the course of the next 6 to 12 months.
Again, Alex Grimnes with Premier Credit Consulting, and obviously we'll have contact information so you can get in touch with him. And if any of you have questions about this, you've looked into it, you don't know, get in touch with us. That's what we do. We're here to help however we can. So Alex, any last words?
Just thank you again, man. It was great chatting with you.
All right, everybody, stay healthy, stay bold, stay rooted. Take care.